a teacher actually stopped me in middle school, and we had to choose a career field trip, and she's like noticed pictures on the back of my album, like binders, and she was like, who took these? And I was like, me. And she's like, what's your career field trip? And I said cosmetology, because all my friends were doing it. And then she's like, go to the office right now and change it. And that literally changed the entire course of my life.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy.
Welcome back to another episode of Moving the Mountain, a creative leadership podcast. We have a very special episode for you guys today. We are with the founding members of Move Mountains Co., both Tiahna Lynn and Josh Mighill.
Full names.
Wow.
So we get some lower thirds on that?
Yeah, you can.
Perfect.
I think my contact in your phone is Josh Mighill still.
Yeah, it is.
It's like been 7 years.
Which is tough because when I tell Siri to call Josh Mighill, I have to say Josh Mighill.
Most people don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I am Spanish, if you didn't know. So well, that makes sense, Spanish. But.
Today we're going to be covering some topics of basically how we started the company, some of the pain points of scaling throughout the years, as we are a company that is now doing over 300 weddings per year, so it can be quite intense. We're going to get into some tips for couples, what to expect on the day and what they should kind of be planning for and thinking through. And then we're also going to be just kind of touching base on some pointers for shooters. So
Absolutely.
Let's get right into it. Josh, why don't we start with you? Well, actually, before we start, this episode is brought to you by Spindrift. It's one of our favorite drinks in the studio. Keeps us going, refreshing, has a very natural flavor. We love it around here.
This is my personal favorite. You got a grapefruit. It's real squeezed fruit. Did you know that?
Only thing, it is tough drinking carbonated water. Makes you a little gassy on the podcast.
Gassy?
A little gassy.
Know.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, you start burping a lot.
Oh, well, is that
know.
gassy?
I don't know. So, yeah, Josh, we'll start with you. Why don't you tell us, like, how you got involved with photography and videography? Because I know when we first met, you're mainly just doing photo, and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so met Sean at an internship program that we did, and I was just a part of like local church. He was going to the internship program, and I saw him like working on some Photoshop stuff. I think you were making like an emailer. I think like a long time ago. And I was like, I was doing Photoshop stuff for the church, you know? So I was like, oh, what's he working on? I'm like, oh, it looks pretty cool, you know? So, and then you started talking to me like, oh yeah, I got a poto video company, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, let me work for you. Let me help you out, you know?
I remember you asking, we didn't have any photo gigs, and I know you did photos like your main thing. And I was like, we have a bunch of video openings. I was like, do you want to learn video? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. I mean, this was back then when we're using Mark IIIs, Canon 5D Mark IIIs, manual focus, mainly on the monopod.
Yep.
You know, and so yeah, that's kind of when I started. Have never done video before, and now years later, it's, you know, full-time job.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
Tiahna, how about you? How did you get into photography, and how did you get linked up with the company?
I think bringing it way back would be watching my mom be a wedding photographer during the film age.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
She is that old.
No.
You're not that much younger than her.
That's true.
That is funny. That is funny.
So I kind of was influenced by that, but I think I've always had a creative way of life. I didn't really succeed in educational realms, really. So school was really tough for me, but photography was always just kind of back there. I used to make videos with my friends, and we always used to be creative and everything together, and just taking photos, making videos, really silly stuff. And then a teacher actually stopped me in middle school, and we had to choose a career field trip, and she's like noticed pictures on the back of my album, like binders. And she was like, who took these? And I was like, me. And she's like, what's your career field trip? And I said, cosmetology, because all my friends were doing it. And then she's like, go to the office right now and change it. And that literally changed the entire course of my life, which is kind of crazy.
Smart woman.
Dabbled in it. She was my science teacher, but she was a photographer herself.
Huh?
Still never thanked her. I don't know where she is
What's
or
her
what she's
name?
up to. I think it was Mrs. McLeod, I think.
Mrs. McLeod.
Shout out.
Shout out.
And so then I went to the school that I attended for 10 months several years later. Then I was in, Rhode Island Creatives Facebook thing. Few mutual friends, few mutual alumni went to it. Brian, Ryan, who else was in there?
Kim,
yeah.
Kristen, I think at some point.
Yeah, did they all attend Hallmark? Kim did?
No.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so Brian and Ryan both attended the same college that I did. And then, so I had mutual friends in there and met Sean. And then it was one other meetup and you said, hey, can we connect?
And that was 2018, right?
17.
17.
End
Wow.
of 17.
And when did you kind of come on?
I mean, I think the second year or first
2016?
First year we started doing video, I think.
Yeah.
That's when I came on.
Yeah. And then our first wedding, all three of us were there, Tyler and Bryn.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
shout out Tyler and Bryn. Great wedding.
It was still to this day a great wedding.
So what do you guys find, like, what do you feel like was maybe like the hardest year?
Ooh.
Hardest year of the company.
Has to be back on like Cromwell days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I mean, last year was tough,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Like probably the first year we actually scaled up to like
Yeah.
150 weddings. I think we had, or maybe a little bit more than that.
For
I think
sure.
where that was.
Yeah, so 2019 we were doing 115 weddings, and in my mind that was probably like the hardest season for us. That was like
we had never done that.
we had never done that,
Right.
and we were all like still kind of figuring it out.
Yep.
And I think the year before we had only done 60, and I think we had a pretty skeleton crew. We didn't have any processes, so I remember one thing that stands out to me is like coming back from every gig,
Yes.
loading in the memory cards,
Oh yeah, importing every night.
importing everything to like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I
Like,
remember one night where I just like laid down on the box or like on a floor.
no, we were like concrete floor sleepers.
Yeah.
Like, it was not easy.
Well, the problem was because we needed cards for like the next
The
day.
next day,
You
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And that was the other part, was just like, okay, like we're importing everything. Hopefully we got everything.
And then we're
Like
clearing
we
cards.
gotta delete everything.
Right.
And that was always like, do we have it? How many
Yeah.
files do you have? 315? Okay.
At, like,
all right, I'm
2
gonna
in the
wipe
morning.
it. I'm gonna, yeah. Yeah.
No,
Smart, really smart.
I'd end up to
Yeah.
a shoot and there'd be an engagement session on it. And I'd be like, do we have this? Did we
Yeah,
import
right,
it?
right.
Stick it back in the card case and try to like be specific on what I shoot because I didn't want to fill up a full card.
Another thing too that I didn't realize at the time, we had bought these hard drives and I thought they were set to a RAID, which is basically a redundancy and it creates a copy automatically. It turns out that you had to install some kind of program for it to create a RAID.
No.
And so there was never
Just
a
thinking
copy.
there's backups and you never.
Thought there were backups. There weren't no backups.
No.
Yeah.
When did you figure that out?
A couple of years later.
If you only have one backup, you have zero
You have
backups.
zero backups.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is tip one for
Yeah.
sure.
The
That's
other
crazy.
kind of standout memory for me is working in my apartment before we even had a space.
So when you say that, I remember you texting me and like sending pictures of this kid Josh, like looking at either spaces or it was like pictures and videos, and you were like, "What do you think of this space?" And I'm like, "I don't know who this guy is." Like, and he's asking me, "Oh yeah, we just put up the tables and so on and so forth." Like that's crazy. So that was like very early on.
Yeah. Well, I remember he was working on
Yeah.
the bar. We were setting up like
Yeah.
IKEA furniture, our first
Yep.
computer. We did like a little
Yeah.
time lapse of
We were
it.
doing like graphic design. I feel like a lot, like logos and
yeah,
stuff.
and Snapchat.
Snapchat filters,
Filters.
Oh
geo
my
filters.
Geofilters.
gosh, geo
Yeah.
filters. I remember that
That was
doing
the
that for
add-on.
weddings.
That was like
I was
probably
like, this-
the worst idea. Because like that is not a thing anymore.
I was
like,
literally like,
whatsoever.
this is distinguishing our company.
No, this literally just happened. Somebody said geotag the other day at a
Really?
wedding, and I'm almost positive.
I just
yeah.
feel like the reach on Snapchat is just not
Oh,
the
no,
same as
it's
like,
not.
any other platform.
You'd be better to like make yourself a filter on Instagram or something for you.
Yeah.
Why did we do that?
I think it was like pretty popular at the time, and I was
Absolutely.
like, this is like, I was like, if everyone's like taking photos, they're gonna see the geo filter, and then they'll see our name on it.
Marketing.
And I was like, that's great.
It's true. It's true.
So
There
I
was
remember
some-
getting
it helped us.
I remember getting texts like, "Where's the geo filter?" And I'd be like, "What do you mean?
The geo filter's
it should
not
be
live."
there." like freaking out.
It's not there. Wow. Think about how small that worry is now. Like,
Yeah.
that's,
Well, we don't do geo filters.
well, I know, but how like
Thank God.
minute it was, but how big of a deal it was for us.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah,
then.
it was huge. And that's it kind of
Maybe
seemed
it
like
worked. I don't know.
everything
Yeah.
seemed like a big deal back then.
I think everything still is a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, it still is, but I feel like at least my worry of it.
Yeah.
You know, I remember in the very early days. I think it was the first wedding that you and Andre had shot, and the bride, you know, kind of was like very upset about some stuff, and like turns out she loved the video, but like for whatever she made like a huge deal, and I was like anxious for like 2 months.
No, the anxiety that we've experienced
Yeah.
Yeah.
is through the
It
roof.
must not have been me filming those. Probably just Andre. I've only had one complaint, and that complaint was invalid.
It was invalid. It really was.
wow.
I remember getting that complaint, and I'm like, at first I was like, and then I was like, that doesn't sound like Josh at all.
That was stressful.
Yeah.
I was like, "Can I see it?" And he was like,
You don't want to see
"You
it.
don't want it." And I
Wow.
remember reading it, and it was just like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph about how unprofessional I was. I mean,
Wow.
granted, wedding was at Rosecliff. Maybe I should have wore a full
Suit.
full suit
Full penguin
in the
suit.
middle of like August, where it's the hottest in New England. Would have been great, you know. But
Yeah.
then they got the video, and they're like, "Oh my god, wow,
Yeah.
wow, he's not an unprofessional child. Whoa, he's
Yeah.
really good. Whoa."
I wonder if
But it's
people,
whatever, you know?
Yeah, I wonder if people see. I mean, I know that people see our staff and they're like, "You guys are young, like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
very young."
Well,
Oh, especially back then too.
Yeah.
Like we were.
I think I started at 17.
Yeah.
17
I think so. Yeah.
How old are you? 21? 20?
must have been.
21. Oh, right. I was like, wait,
Me?
what? Right now?
I'm 27 now, so I don't know. I've been here for what? Has it been 5 years?
Yeah.
5
I'm
years?
25. I don't know. I think
You're 20,
I know I've been
like
here
19 or
longer
20.
than everybody,
Yeah.
but I always get it mixed up. I don't know. It's 6 years or 7 years. I don't know.
I almost go by seasons.
We're in our 7th season, and to give you a kind of a timeline, so we had done, I think, like 25 weddings first year, then it was like 40, 50, and then it was 60, and we scaled to 2019, we scaled to 115,
And then COVID.
and then 2020 we had 150, which I think we're not prepared for.
No.
Still like 50 something.
And because we rescheduled 100 of those, we ended up doing 250 in 2021, which I thought was our smoothest year.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like that besides
The gear.
the lack of gear, and
the cards.
the cards, yeah, and the buildings. The building we were in, that was
That
a
was
challenge.
challenge, yeah.
Missing cards.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What do you feel like? What do you feel like was like a big contributor to the success of the company?
To the success with it. I mean,
I think it's just having
well, I think it's a culmination of like, I think good work ethics.
Yeah.
And also, you know, a good boss. And I would say,
don't make
even
this
though, you know, becoming a boss or like leading a team for the first time isn't something like you might be good at it like naturally, and that just comes to you. But if it doesn't come to you, you know, it can be tougher trying to figure out how do I manage each person, because everyone's so
Right.
different.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, training, like specifically showing this is how you do it, going out to the gig with, you know, me or whatever, just
Yeah.
looking at my camera and be like, all right. Because I always remember when we were first starting, he's like, all right, make sure you punch in. You got to punch in. Because if you don't punch in, it's probably soft. And I'm like,
it looks like it's in focus.
not.
It's
I
not in
swear.
yeah.
And, you know, I think it's just a lot of repetition. And,
Consistency.
you know, like success doesn't come in a snap.
Right.
We've been working at this, like we said, for, you know, 7 seasons.
Right.
So, you know, I think you get lucky if, like, you know, snap and like you're successful. But, you know, I think having somebody to look to for advice, how do I shoot this? How should I do this? It definitely helps out a lot. Definitely in the long run, but I think consistency, shooting over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because when I started taking photos in my church. And so for years and years, I had just taken photos. And in the beginning, they sucked. They were terrible, you know. But then you start to see, like, okay, this is how I want my photo to look. This is how, you know, they should look. And as you start progressing, you get better and better. And I think that's how I got better at filming and being a videographer, photographer, was just working and going out shooting,
The
being
experience.
active with it. and always having it in the back of my head that, this is something I need to work on continually. Because it's like when we shoot weddings, we have this off season in the winter, and it always feels like if we're not shooting in that off season or doing stuff, then that first wedding back, you feel like,
rusty.
what am I telling the couple?
Yeah.
Like what
Right.
poses are we doing? Because you're like trying to like get back into the flow of it.
Yeah.
But being like, productive throughout the whole entire year and continually shooting, it definitely I think helps.
I think another thing is not settling. Because, with you've obviously, like, always had a vision and a goal to do something bigger and better the next year. So it's
Right.
like, oh, this season, what was it? The first time you were like, oh, I want to do 200 weddings. Obviously, you didn't reach that whatsoever. But if you didn't, like...
It's true.
Yeah, what did you end up
suck.
doing? Was it 50? Did you end up doing 50 weddings your first year?
Yeah, I think from the...
Or 25
from
or
the,
something.
Like, from the rip, it was supposed to be, like, 100 weddings. That was kind of what
Yeah.
we were trying to... Which we didn't hit from... till 2019.
Yeah, so that's several years. But if you didn't start with that vision or that dream or that goal, you wouldn't have even thought that you could go even bigger and better. So, like, now we're like, 400 weddings next year. Imagine, like, 2017
Right.
you being like, let's shoot 400 weddings. Like, are you kidding
Yeah,
me?
I didn't think that was possible.
Right.
I didn't even know if 100 was possible. It seemed doable. But then,
Yeah.
when we were moving all those weddings over from the pandemic into an already booked year, I was like, oh God, how are we going to do this?
Still booking for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly feel like 2020 was a pretty good year for us, even though it was a little
Right.
bit lighter than what it was supposed to be.
It helped us.
I think it definitely benefited from that.
Definitely.
The rollover, though, that was a little tricky, but still went smoother than I anticipated.
To answer that previous question, I would say like never kind of quitting, because it was hard,
Yeah.
and we
Oh.
always seem to push through, and you guys kind of being like, the core, you guys like allowed yourselves to be like pushed and like continue like take feedback and kind of
Yeah.
improve. And then also just like kind of grab like the ethos of the company, where like now you kind of like instill that into like these second year shooters. And like, I'm always impressed like by Josh, because, you're saying like, about the client experience, and you're like,
Right.
you have so much ownership over the craft. And it's just like, how did we get there? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, like what I always say, in our meetings and to our other shooters, it's like, yeah, you're talented and we have this gift, a wedding day is probably the happiest day of people's lives, and you don't want to screw that up for anybody.
Right.
So yeah, you got your talent, which is awesome. But if you have a terrible attitude, or like you create
yeah.
a bad like experience for the couple,
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest things, where like you put your talent aside. If you're not a good people person, if you can't talk to a couple or your bride or your groom, whatever it is,
Yeah.
because really we're also using our talents, but we're also rendering our services to them. But then how we act around them, how we talk to them, bringing a different experience, I think that's what really also
Yeah.
changes
Right.
how the wedding day feels, how the couple feels after the wedding, And so I think if you're doing really anything you can for the couple, so it's like, you need water, you need food.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys need? You're
Right.
cold. You need a jacket. Like,
Yeah.
just asking them whatever they need, and really being, serving the couple.
Literally serving,
Right.
yeah.
So now I think that's what really helped the company too, as well, because I feel like that's how me and Tiahna are, and you're the
Right.
same way. And so I think the sales managers at venues see that, the coordinators at venues see that, since we're always like connecting with them.
Yeah.
What do you guys need help with? Do you need drone shots? Do you need like
Mm-hmm.
like when we went to what was it, Blythewald?
Well, yeah.
And we're just like, hey, what do you need? And she's like, oh, well, I need videos, and I need some like printout materials. So I think we gave her like a photo booth packet, and then we were like, do we have like an Apple TV? So we had an Apple TV that we didn't use, so we gave her an Apple TV so she
Wow.
could display like videos to clients.
That's awesome.
And I think that's another thing to talk about success in the company, is that we took it really serious in the beginning. And so I
Right.
think that's how we were able to get preferred across,
Very.
mostly every venue in Newport, I would say, and across New England.
We've been to quite a few.
Pretty much.
Yeah, we've
know?
had like a lot of success with like getting in with vendors. Seem to really like us, and venues, and I feel like that was as simple as like we were very intentional about like our posting on social
Right.
and our sharing of the. It's like
That's the biggest response is
Right.
people, vendors and venues coming back to us being like, even when I show up again, they're like,
Yeah.
you guys are the only photographers that I work with. And this isn't on everybody, but a lot of people are like, nobody sends us content. We're still waiting from June of last year.
Yeah.
We can't get the photographers to send us stuff. And it's like, why wouldn't you want to be like a contributor to other people's success in those areas?
Yeah, it always blew my mind. Where like, I know there's this one florist, Botanica.
Yes. I love her. She's so sweet.
She's awesome. Does great work. Every time I see her, she's like,
Same.
"Oh, I love you guys.
Yes,
I love you guys.
yes.
You always send me the stuff, and it looks
She
great."
says
You
that
know,
all the time.
yeah. I always was really confused by photographers who never, sent their work to the vendors because it's
Right.
like that's just another area where you can grow your business.
right.
Absolutely.
Because if we start sending it to every single vendor, after
Literally
every
every
wedding, we send it
vendor.
to every vendor that we have. So I think just being consistent with that and doing it all the time, they're going to post your work. They're going to tag you.
Right. Mhm.
Their clients are going to see it.
We even,
And it's just an ever revolving cycle where it's
Right.
like, if you're not doing that, why aren't you doing it? Because it's really free. It's free money, free advertisement,
Absolutely. But it generates those connections as well. And
Right.
Yeah, then they're referring us, and I remember too, like that kind of became like a paradigm shift where it was like we were like, okay, we're posting on social media all the time, and then we're like, we should be really focusing on highlighting other vendors, you
People
know?
that make the wedding happen.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
and
whole
because they're
team.
going to be the ones like sharing it. So I felt like that really helped too. And those vendor referrals always, like when we get an inquiry from a vendor referral, like those always closed
Right.
Yep.
10 times, 20 times higher
Oh, for
than
sure.
anything else. But yeah, that was something I learned. Back to like the client experience, that was actually something I learned from you, where I was like, I think in the beginning I was so focused on having a great product. I was like, the photo is going to be so good, and like, in a way that's caring about the client, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I want to get them what they paid for. I want it to be the best. And so, we would scrutinize photos, galleries, edits, video edits. We're always trying to like push,
Still
learn.
do.
Still
Yeah.
do. The quality control is like
orange.
2 magenta. Send it back.
Yeah, you should see how many forms we have now.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
quality forms. But yeah, but then that was like another paradigm shift too, because I heard you always kind of talking about the client experience in the day, and I started thinking about, well, yeah, it's like they're spending more time with us than their significant other. They're spending
Right.
more time
Yeah.
with us on the wedding day than anybody else.
Yeah.
So it's like making sure that they're, enjoying us, and enjoying
Right.
hanging out with us, and we're bringing energy, and we're
Yeah.
being a support, and like you said, like serving the couple. I feel
Yeah.
like that has been like really big with people loving the experience.
Definitely.
And like referring us.
I think that's like once we received like reviews back from our team, it's like they were such a blast to work with. They were
Right.
so funny, and it's
Yeah.
just like lightening the mood. And we just had a bride, and she had a really tough morning because her hair wasn't how she wanted it. And we've seen it multiple times, and it's tough because you expect this day
Yeah.
to be perfect.
Right.
But it's really important to ensure your couples like just enjoy the moment, have fun.
Sometimes they're putting so much pressure on it because so much
Yeah.
expectation. They've been
Yeah.
planning it for so long.
Yeah.
They want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
It has to
You
be
know,
perfect. This
has-
is
yeah.
the
That you have
biggest
a
day,
one chance.
of your
Right.
life. Nothing can
Hopefully,
go
yeah.
wrong. That's what the weddings is like. If one thing goes wrong early in the day, it really does mess up the flow, or it can really affect like
Right.
the mental, mindset of how the day is going to go.
Yeah.
Just off of one thing,
So speaking of that, kind of walking into a wedding day, like what are some things that like you guys do to like prepare for a successful wedding day?
Overall, or
Yeah, overall.
I mean, I'm always successful.
ain't nobody messing with me. No, for me, it's just checking my timeline, making sure that I know where I'm going. I'm super particular about arriving early early to weddings. So I'm like probably 30 minutes to our early call time. So
Yeah, definitely.
typically I map out my my travels, and then making sure I have cards, batteries, cameras. I like to have an extra camera just in case, so I have two.
Smart.
Like I always like to double check that I have things that if I do fail, I have backups.
Yeah, definitely.
But getting there early is the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, it's definitely the same. Getting there early. I mean, like, I feel like if you're rushing in the morning, during a wedding. That's usually what will throw you off for the whole day.
It's the worst.
Just because you want to have time to make sure you're getting everything. And if you don't have that time or you feel like you're rushing, you know, everything just kind of gets a little sloppy. So I always like to give myself like an hour, 30 minutes early, just in case. You never know what can happen.
We have gotten rear-ended at a wedding before.
I got rear-ended.
Yeah, you did, but I was with you.
I've hit in some crazy traffic too, heading up to the Cape. Like even like with leaving early.
Oh yeah.
Like there was one time I was just, and there's nothing worse than like being anxious, like heading into a wedding.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah, especially the Cape. I mean, if you think you can leave like
right
when
on
the
time,
actually says,
you better add
you
two,
messed up.
2+ hours, 3 maybe.
Yeah, and that's always. I mean, also think about the client. Where the heck's my photographer? You know,
sorry, just in the Cape, stuck on the bridge.
Because
Like,
if the photographer or the videographer is not there,
did it happen?
yeah,
And that's
exactly.
I feel like that sets the tone of the wedding too. You know.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
No, I've had that happen before. Where,
Oh yeah.
Really?
but it was all a misunderstanding.
Oh yeah.
So it was really
Some
tough.
timeline issues.
But that's having a tight timeline is very important, and having clear communications is like another huge thing on both parties.
Actually, like looking at your timeline before the day of the wedding.
But I was
oh shoot.
I was in fact an hour and a half early to my call time.
Right.
Yeah.
And the bride thought I was a half hour late.
Yeah.
And that was not, everything turned out great. Great couple.
Yeah,
super,
and I mean the reason
nice,
we worry about those things too is because we care so much about the client.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like,
that was rough.
you know, any of our clients watching this now, like the reason we are so, you know, particular about how we work and you know, is because we want to make sure you're getting the best day possible. And you know, that like we really take pride in that. And because we know, you know, we have to be on our A game so you get, you know, the best quality images and pictures, memories you can hold on to forever. So I think, you know, that it's a big thing for me too. Like I know I got to bring my A game every single wedding because I wouldn't want, you know, some photographer coming to shoot my wedding who is you know, is going to put in half the work or half the effort, isn't going to, you know, be busting it, running around, hustling around. You know, I want a photographer that's going to do their best job. And, you know, because would you want that to happen on your wedding day?
No.
Would you want like a mediocre, you know, job done by whoever you're hiring and paying thousands of dollars? No, absolutely not.
No.
You only get one shot. And so you got to make sure, you know, you're on top of everything.
Yeah.
So,
I think over time it starts naturally like filling you.
Yeah.
Like when I arrive to a wedding, I'm like, okay, let's go. Like even in the morning, if I'm like, oh, another wedding, I get there, I'm like, all right, let's go. We're having fun.
Me
like,
and Tiahna, and like, just like good vibes. Good
yes, I
energy.
remember that.
And hey, it worked. That
worked.
was like Casey and Cassandra's wedding.
Yes,
that was
funny.
That one was great. That was good.
The morning of, we were like, all right, today,
Just yelling at each other in the car.
good vibes, you know, being silly. But when we got there, we looked at each other, we're like, good vibes. Because we walked in and we're like,
definitely.
how's it going? And you know, you got to set yourself up for that. You can't just be dragging your feet in because people are going to notice it.
Right. Yeah.
110%.
That affects other people too.
Oh.
We come in with a lot of energy.
Right.
They're going to come back at us with a lot of energy. You know, they're going to be excited. They're going to be happy. And you kind of like, you know, sometimes you got an early start time. Get a Red Bull. Get a coffee, get an espresso, whatever you need. Espresso. You know, and just walk in there, kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of energy, high energy.
And once you get the system down pat, I think it definitely gives you a little bit more room to be yourself, and you're excited, but you understand the assignment and you understand like how to capture what you're looking for. So
yeah, I mean, I still get nervous.
I know.
Yeah. Same.
I was nervous driving up to the engagement session yesterday. I was like, gotta take deep breaths in the car.
I did an engagement session too the other day at the Dunes, and I was like, I'm intimidated. Like I don't know what to do.
So
I mean,
funny.
it happens.
Yeah, it
you know?
does.
Yeah, you get that tension.
That's
on
a
that
good thing,
wedding
though.
day.
I mean,
yeah,
I feel like that's a good thing.
I
Yeah.
think so. It keeps you on your feet.
Surprisingly, when I do video, though, I'm not really nervous.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think when you put 1,000 hours
I'd be
into something,
nervous.
it's like
Photo is like carrying the day.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Like they're
That's what
directing
it is.
everything.
And then
yeah.
video is more equipment.
So it's like photo is easier because it's like less equipment.
But you have to
just
have a voice. and control.
Yeah.
You run the day.
You got to
Photographer
bring
runs
more
the day.
energy for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then doing video,
Oh,
you just
I couldn't do it. Hands off. not
carrying
me.
a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
running around.
A lot more running around for sure.
It's like
Well, you got
lathing up people.
4 cameras, audio.
Right.
It's insane.
You know, setting up for the ceremony, setting up for speeches. There's always things you're going to set up. You got the drone. You got like so many moving parts.
Yeah.
So that's why you
Very
have to be
tedious.
on your A game, especially if you're solo.
And I think that's where, like, you know, we're very particular about like who we choose to work with and who we choose to train, really.
Right.
You know, because this is really an industry of like freelance, and we've always kind of been more like, all right, we want team members, we want people on staff, because we want that much control over like the client experience and the quality of the product. And I feel like that's been huge with us, with like who we decide to work with.
Absolutely.
And we're pretty careful about moving into those relationships. And then that's where I feel like you guys' leadership like really kind of comes in, and, you know, you guys are out there on every gig, like talking, like training them and talking to them. And we spend so much time, you know, usually just putting people on before they're just shadowing for a while.
Yeah.
Just to kind of learn our process. So I feel like that's kind of been like another thing too. And that kind of brings up, segues into another kind of conversation. How has it been, because this is really an industry of freelance, right? Everybody's kind of their own business owner. What was your experience as far as like transitioning from the freelance method? Because you guys kind of both came on staff. You were about a year after Josh. What's been like your experience like with that? And how do you guys like that compared to kind of what the industry is at?
So
Pause
like
for a second.
freelance versus working full time.
Wait.
Yes.
Do you have that phone call?
I believe it's at
So it's at
4:30.
4:30.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
And we're gonna go.
Ruined.
We're gonna
Sorry,
go
sorry,
live
sorry,
with
sorry.
that call.
Sales call, live
gonna go
sales
live
call.
with the sales
Let's
call.
see if
Are
let's
you
see if they'll
really?
close. If they'll close
No.
on the
All right,
phone.
I'm gonna need you to close. We're live on the podcast.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I need you to close.
Didn't want though. I didn't know if it was up.
All right. We have 1,000 people watching live.
Will they book?
Will you book?
You're live on air.
That would be funny. That would
Oh
be
my
funny.
word! They're like, yes. Oh, let's go. Oh man. it's
So
too good.
freelance versus like full time.
Yes.
In the office.
And you guys have, obviously you guys started freelance at this company,
Right.
so
Mm-hmm.
kind of like.
Well,
what's
I
been the
mean,
difference?
obviously freelance offers a little more freedom.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of
Hence
like
the word. The name.
shoot, drop off your cards, you're done.
Right.
You know, where a lot of people who don't want the weight and pressure of running their own company, you know, they turn to, you know, a different company, and, you know, that company outsources the work to them as a freelancer. Now, where I think what I kind of preferred, whereas I did not want to run a company by myself because I thought that was a lot of pressure and I didn't know everything, you know. And some people just kind of just go for it, and that's great. But I was like, I don't want to do a disservice to, you know, clients that I could potentially get, because I don't really know a lot. So I wanted to be part of a team, you know, and that's where I found Move Mountains, you know, and working in the studio, I think, is a whole lot different than, you know, you actually get some camaraderie. You get to know your, you know, other shooters, people that you're working with all the time, how they act, kind of like, you know, their mannerisms, you know, just kind of, you get to know each other. And so I think when working with a team, that's most important. It's like, if you don't know your team, you know,
Right.
You might not work as well together, you know? And so I think, you know, I've been working with Tiahna for like 5-6 years.
Yeah,
and I
it's
think
crazy.
that's why we work so well together.
Right.
And like the way we work, it's like,
It's weird.
you know, like we don't even have to like say anything. We kind of just know.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we know where we're moving. We know where we're going, where we're like walking backwards, like taking like walking shots, you know, whatever.
It's almost like a practice dance.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's weird. And this year, I think, is the year where I was like, whoa. Like,
Yeah.
I really realized that I'm like, we're very in tune
Definitely.
to what we are looking for. I don't know. We had somebody comment that on that at Mike and Monica's wedding.
yeah, or
Yeah.
people just
And
think
there's-
we're married.
That's
too.
that's a huge
Always.
thing.
So how'd you guys meet?
Our boss?
She actually shot my wedding.
Oh, man.
I think, well, that's also another thing. I think comparing like being a freelancer and working in the office, I do think, you know, there just isn't that like familiarity,
Yeah.
that friendship level.
Right.
There's
Where I do
definitely a
think that really
distance.
does rub off on you on the day of the wedding, you know, because I know with a lot of our freelancers, although they're great workers and they're good at what they do, you don't really know everything about them. You know, you don't know how they kind of act all the time. So
Right.
Yeah.
you can kind of, you never really know what you're going to
And
get.
that's why I prefer like having people, like finding the right people that we really connect with, training them, even if
Yep.
it's from the ground up. I almost prefer that, even
Yeah,
though it's
definitely.
a bigger investment. It takes longer. I love that because, you have people like invested into the company. They're going to care about the clients more. They're going to care about, I think it's a better feel. Like it feels closer and like more intimate. And, I think that like kind of shows like to the couples.
For sure. Yeah, I was the same way. I started out obviously as a freelancer, but I lived in New Hampshire, so that was really tough. The traveling sucked me dry. Like that was really tricky, and then like the hotels and stuff. It's a decent
It's like an hour
drive.
30, quick.
Yeah, but you do a full wedding,
Yeah, so it's like another
and then
3
you drive
hours.
back. Yeah, so that's not always fun. That wasn't fun, but
Right. Yeah.
it was
This is why we got you here.
exactly. Here I am, full time.
She took some convincing though.
Yeah. Years.
Well,
Years.
I definitely couldn't survive off of what I was going to be making.
My first offer, we were a young company. My first offers weren't
And
crazy.
I knew that, and I knew that you wouldn't be able to. It wouldn't.
I couldn't
work.
afford her.
Yeah. It's all right. It's all right.
But realistically,
Now we can afford
Now we can
anyone.
afford it.
everybody and some. No, I think the biggest thing for me is like I really enjoy not having the weight of a company. I suck at dealing with money, and like I don't like dealing with it, like invoicing people and emailing people, and like that is just not my vibe. I'm not a studio manager. I'm not a marketing manager. Like I'm not very great at those things. So being able to show up and shoot and still be a part of a group, which is really fun. I don't know. It feels like it makes it more fun than
Definitely does.
solo.
Yeah, the days are usually like you're coming to work and like,
we have fun
so you
days.
guys all friends. So it's like, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it can be
there's-
some tough
definitely.
days, but like, yeah, it is fun.
I feel like there's a good separation between work and friendship. We kind of know, when we're in the office, obviously, we're working,
Yep.
but we're also friends. But you got to find the fine line in between the two, where it's
I
like,
get jealous sometimes because like I'm always in the office and it's like work, and then like, but I'm not out in the field as much anymore,
Yeah.
and so like you guys always look like you're having so much fun.
it's getting old,
And
guys.
I'm like, I wish I went to this wedding.
Should I show up?
Do you guys need me?
Are you sure you don't need me?
Should I come
That's so
through?
funny.
Should I just like come through?
Come
No, I
through.
mean, yeah, it is true. Sometimes you're FOMO, you don't want to miss out.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, nowadays I like leave weddings and I'm like, let's go. Like, where is that energy coming from?
Yeah.
Some nights, like, I used to get so exhausted and be like, okay, I'm done. But now I'm just like, all right, that was great. Let's do another one.
Yeah, especially when that dance floor opens up.
Brendan and Julianne's
Honestly.
wedding, man. That after
That was
party,
crazy. That was
I
fun.
can't
they want to
even.
leave.
I know it was a little begrudging at first. It's like, all right, like now we got the after party. We're gonna stay 20 minutes, get the shots we need.
But then you see it.
But then
and you're
yeah,
like,
Yeah,
it
it's
was
so
awesome.
much worth it. That
Yeah, yeah,
effort and like
Yeah.
that draw to capture those moments, it's going to make it 10 times
for sure.
better.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
I
kind
was
of
jealous.
Kind of speaking of like, let's transition it to a little bit of like the client perspective, right? And they've booked their photo, video. What do you feel like some things that the client should be, or these couples should be thinking about ahead of time to really like ensure like good photos or like make your guys' jobs easy?
Timeline.
Yeah, definitely timeline.
It's
Allotting
huge.
a certain amount of time for each
Section.
section of the day. So making sure we have enough time so we're not rushing.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is time and
Yeah.
at a wedding day, and you're better off adding 15 minutes in between everything, just a buffer room if you can
Right.
afford it.
Especially if that's the
It's-
most important thing to you on your wedding day is your photos.
Right.
Yeah,
Then and you're paying, I don't know what the average package price is, across like New England.
yeah,
But let's say it's $5,000, So you want to spend $5,000 where, well, yes, we're going to capture, everything from start to finish. But you want a lot of photos of you and your groom,
Yeah.
You want a lot of photos of the people that mean the most to you, that are present at the wedding itself. So if you're not allotting a lot of time, then you might be a little dissatisfied with the end product. Be like, oh, I thought I'd have more photos,
yeah.
Right.
And that's another thing, always get a second shooter. Always get a second shooter.
Second shooters will, and most of the time, save the day because
Yeah.
if you don't have a large time frame,
Right.
second shooters like Yeah, highly.
Yeah,
recommend.
I always tried to like buffer in like 30 minutes, like an extra 15 minutes here and there, like between events.
Yeah.
Especially if you have travel throughout the day.
Oh yeah.
In
Yeah, that's another
Newport.
thing.
Oh,
I would say, yeah.
Like, well, we were
One
talking
location,
about it.
right?
I think I did a wedding kind of recently, and I think I had maybe like 2 hours of drive time in between, you know? So it's like, you know, we did prep, then we're going to go do the first look. But the first look's like 40 minutes away, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so, all right, let's drive out there. And then, all right, now we got to go to the ceremony. All right, the ceremony's not at the venue. So that's another 20-minute drive. And then once the ceremony's done, all right, now we got to drive an hour to the venue. And it's like, man, you just wasted 2 hours on you know, hours that I'm driving around and where I could be working and getting more shots.
and obviously that's all
know,
by choice too.
yeah,
And like
definitely.
if they're
And
not 100% like all
Yeah.
about it, then that's cool. But
Right.
definitely if photo and video are your most important, definitely a lot of time for that.
Yeah.
For
I mean, obviously,
sure.
we want the couple, they can pick and choose
Yeah.
wherever they want to go. And if
Right.
they're really adamant about that, totally, we support you,
Absolutely.
you know, but it's just something to keep in mind. Like, you know, you might not want to drive like an hour away somewhere, which is like a little more
Yeah.
practical. But
I feel like it's kind of like anything else. It's like, you know, keep it simple, right? Keep the day
super
simple, especially
simple.
a day like that already has a lot of stress, has a lot of pressure, right? For the expectation of it.
Yeah.
It's like, why go out of your way to like create these logistical challenges for everybody? And especially like in Boston and you know, even Newport, I feel
Yeah.
like, and a lot of times couples will think, for like the portrait sessions, right? I want to do my family photos here. I want to do my bridal parties here. I want to do my portraits here. I want to go to these 3 locations for portraits. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, slow down. Like you booked your wedding at Bel Air. It has beautiful views. Like you're not going to get better
paid
views.
an arm and a leg to get there because
Yeah.
it's such a stunning
Right.
place and
It's
it's
like-
so worth it.
And there's
but-
so much variety even on their land. So
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
the more, like you just keep it in one place, like your photos are going to be great. When you're
Yeah.
traveling all around, there's no time to like settle down and like just like really be
In the moment,
in the
yeah.
moment and taking
Yeah.
photos. So it's like,
yeah, definitely too many moving parts.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So timeline and
Second,
yeah.
add a second shooter.
Add a second shooter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's another angle, another perspective to your whole day. Where like,
Yeah. The lead
when I was doing
shooters.
timelines with couples last year, you know, just kind of talking throughout the whole day how it's going to work, how we work, you know, I would always tell them like, you know, the lead photographer is really with the couple all day. Like
Right.
that's their main priority. That's who they focus on. You know, couple and bridal party, where the second photographer is really capturing a lot of the moments, the
Candid,
emotions,
yeah.
the candid.
Right.
You know, you probably don't see this. If you're at a wedding, you're probably not going to see the second shooter because they're like,
Right.
you know, hiding
They're
in
floating.
the shadows. You know, they're
Yeah.
taking those photos, and you know, especially for like your ceremony, you know, you get additional like angles where like the
Yes.
lead photo, you know, photographer might be really focusing on the couple, or you know, some ceremonies I feel like are like 5 minutes long, and it's like you barely have any time to get photos. So it's definitely beneficial to have someone who has a different perspective, who's capturing other
Absolutely.
moments, you know, where the photographer who's with the couple all day might not be able to get to those moments, or you know, like detail shots, different things
Yeah.
like that. Depending on how the timeline does work,
And
it's
the
really,
shooters you
you know,
have.
you never know how it could go.
Yeah. And for you guys, like, what do you look for in a second? Like, what are some attributes? Like,
Ooh,
you know, what are you kind of putting on
good
them?
thing.
Attributes. Well,
Someone-
they can't suck.
Yeah. It can't be trash. No, for me, I think it's somebody who's willing to help. People who are there like, hey, do you need anything? Or ask me like, hey, where do I need to be next? Or, you know, I just don't want somebody like that's just not willing. They're just kind of like sitting there twiddling their
Yeah.
thumbs. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I want you shooting, and I want you to be getting a totally different perspective. And just helping out too. Like there's a lot of equipment to lug around, even for video. You know, just being on your feet, off your phone.
Yeah.
On your feet, off your phone. Yeah, that should be
Wow.
like a motto.
Wow.
Yeah, we should put get that on a
Everywhere.
decal.
Yeah,
It just
it's, you know, I think I look for the same thing too. Someone who's
Yeah.
just like engaged, you know, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're here, they're present, and they're like wanting to help shoulder the weight,
Yeah.
you know?
Definitely.
And then you're not having to drag them along like, hey, you know?
Okay, you go here now. It's more
Right.
like, hey, am I good to go to the cocktail hour? Absolutely go. Yeah. Like, am I good to go to details? Absolutely go. Like, know the steps and just get to it. Yeah.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think it's something we always talk about, like communicating up. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are a second, you know, I really shouldn't be telling you much.
Right.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I think you should be coming to me. Hey, where do you want me to go next? Hey, what should I do this? Should I do this? You know.
Right.
Communicating up. Yep.
Another thing, you know, definitely got to be on mission on task, like
Right.
the whole day. Like, you
Yeah.
know, don't want to see you on your phone. Don't want guests to see you on your phone.
Ugh.
Especially if we're doing video, you know, like I know there's a lot more stuff
Dude.
that's moving around for that. And so if you have two people that can help, you know, setting up things, you're going to do it a lot faster than just one person. But I think biggest thing for me is like, if my second is kind of, you know, space cadet a little bit, they're a little slow. That definitely like, well,
It's not very smart.
because it's like, it
No.
just defeats the purpose of having a second, because I feel like I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I've
You know?
had
You're
that
working
happen where I
against
feel
them
like
almost.
I'd rather be alone sometimes.
exactly.
You know, because
You're not helping me right now.
Right.
And I mean, maybe it's, you know, maybe they started second shooting too soon.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they need a little bit more work, more training. Maybe after the wedding, it's sitting down, talking to them. All right, what do you need help with?
Right.
You know, because your mind can be racing a lot when you're at a wedding. But I feel like, you know, after doing it for so many years, it's like I kind of have the whole process, the ideas, like it's all in the back of my head. I could go run through a whole wedding day and
In
like
your
that,
sleep.
you know, and tell you a lot of things about a wedding. So I think, you know, definitely that's a big thing. Like you want your second to actually feel like they're your second, you know.
Right.
They're basically your second pair of eyes.
Definitely.
Because the lead is focused on getting the shots.
Yeah.
You know, like,
And that's why, like, when, you know, we just came back from South Carolina, and I was, you know, I was shooting lead on the second.
Oh,
No, but-
how the
but, you know,
turntables
True.
have
But it's like,
turned.
it's having someone like Sean that I'm like, all right, in the back of my head, I know I'm good. All right. Like he knows what he's supposed
Right.
to do.
And that's how it should, like, your
Yeah.
second should create a level of confidence.
Yeah.
Where it's just like,
Exactly.
I know that person's got it.
Yeah.
I'm not worried. Did he mic up this person? Did he mic up that? Is the
Yeah.
second audio going? Are there
Video would
tripods
be
up?
really tough.
And that's
Yeah.
that's one thing where it's like, you know, working with Sean and probably Sean working with me and definitely some of our other shooters, it's like I know, like I don't have to tell them, you know,
they just
and
know.
even if I do, you know, but it's a weight that's lifted off.
Yeah.
Because like I don't want to have to go into the wedding day knowing I do have a second, but I got to shoot this like I'm the only one
Right.
here.
yeah, defeats the
Because it definitely
purpose.
adds a little bit more pressure, like we were talking about earlier. You know, like some things that can kind of like, you know, frustrate you during the wedding day, or it might throw you off. That definitely is up there for
Yeah.
sure. You know,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember in the early days too, it'd kind of be like, yeah, you might have to carry this wedding. You might be carrying this wedding. Right on. So should
that's why we have back issues.
so true.
Crazy.
So we could go live.
Ooh.
Do we want to go live?
Do we want to go live?
Do y'all have any more questions?
Yeah, do you know
More
more
questions?
questions? I feel like I had one, but I don't know.
Shoot. More questions? I did have a whole list here. Kind of went over founding members, early days,
Early days.
challenges of scale. We could kind of touch on that. Working as employee versus freelance, things we've learned, bridal resource. We went over shooter tips. Have we gone over shooter tips?
No, not really.
Shooter tips, like what?
Yeah. So
What tips?
with for other
we don't
shooters who maybe
give those.
wanna
We don't
give
give those
tips.
out.
All right, we're gonna give them a couple freebies here, but nothing. We won't give
You
them
can
the whole
you can see
recipe.
that on our how we do it coming out 2023.
Let's just make it 2024 at this point.
Hey, we have a big process, guys. It
I
takes a
know.
lot
It
of
really
time. You know,
is.
we're still fine tuning.
I wonder if like outsider people like see our process and they're like, "What the heck are they doing?"
I don't. Well,
Do you wonder?
Well, I don't. I mean, I'm just gonna go off like the top, but like I don't think a lot of people know how
That's
big our
true.
company is.
Mhm.
And I think if you looked at other vendors, so you know, photo video companies that do mass scale of weddings a year, look at the quality of those companies, and then come back and look at our company and see, you know, a lot how hard we work
Yeah.
and how much, you know, effort we put into what we're creating. Because, you know, I'll go on I'll go on Wedding Wire, and I'll see some of the bigger companies. You might not know who they are. It's really easy to tell, though. Just check their reviews. And
Throwing shade.
No, I'm not.
But
I'm
it's-
not.
but
I'm
it's
not listening to any
genuine,
companies.
yeah.
But you know, I think for us being a company that is getting to the 250 plus mark, 300 weddings, and we're
Yeah.
keeping an average turnaround time of 1 week per wedding,
Right.
and we're working on the video side of that right now. So I don't think a lot of people understand that,
Yeah.
and how much time and effort does go into your wedding, because we
Right.
take it very serious.
Right.
I feel like we really try our hardest
Yeah.
at it. Yeah.
And
for
we
sure.
really fine-tuned everything where it's easy for other people to understand. It's easy for other people to get it.
Right.
And, so they can see it on their phone. They know all the shots that we're trying to get. They can see examples of it. And then on the day of, you get to experience it. So,
Yeah, and that was always like important to us. I feel like from the beginning, like quality was always, even probably more so than scale. Like quality was always super. It was like top priority.
Right.
And that's always kind of been. And then as we started to scale, like we didn't lose. It wasn't gonna be like, oh well, we can take in all these weddings and
Yeah.
making more money. Like
how do we get
quality is
better?
gonna go down. It was always like quality was still super important.
Needs
Yeah.
to be.
Always.
And I love that because it does, like, we're able to do, I feel like scale is hard, quality is hard, like, and we're
Yeah.
trying to do both. And I
the
love
same
that.
time.
Yeah. I love that about the company. And like you said, like the turnaround times, like 1 week photo turnaround time.
Which
Like,
is very much unheard of. Because I couldn't do that on my own. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, even on an individual level, on a boutique level.
I think that's where having a bigger wedding company, because we have a pretty big staff, and not a lot of people know that either.
Yeah.
But so, having the people in office that can get the photos out, get videos out is super helpful. Where, being by yourself and running a company, it's totally different. It's totally
Well, you're
different.
one person, so it's like
Yeah.
you're doing the timelines,
You
you're
got
scheduling
so much stuff
engagement,
to
you're
do.
doing the editing, like you're doing your finances,
It's absurd.
Yeah, and I think
your
that's
marketing.
that's why me and Tiahna did not want to start a company by ourselves, because
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people know how much actually does go into
It's
it unless you do have your own
insane.
company.
Yeah, I don't know how I
Like you don't have free time.
did in the.
Well, you didn't have free time.
I wasn't doing
Well,
anything anyway.
Like,
We all know
well,
that.
yeah, we know that. But no, but you think about in the beginning, like, when were you never not in the office?
That's
Right.
so true.
Yeah.
Like
all
11 o'clock, 12
like,
o'clock.
Yeah, exactly.
5 in the
Exactly.
morning. Like I remember you would roll in at like 5 a.m. because you
Like,
couldn't
I think
just sleep.
the first
It's probably stress.
3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
you were really grinding, and not to mention you were working with other companies before you had even started Blue Mountains.
I think I did in like 3 years.
So it's like,
Yeah.
trying not to burn yourself out where you have like X, Y, and Z that you have to think about in the back of your head. And did I do this? And did I forget to do this?
Right.
Oh shoot, I have a phone call, which you probably have one soon.
Yeah, it's coming up.
5 minutes.
6 minutes. Yeah.
Minutes.
So there's just a lot that goes into it. And I think mentally, like, you're never really prepared for it.
No.
You just got to work at it and keep working. And as you fail, you get better.
Yeah.
And you improve.
Oh, we've failed a few times, but
Oh, for sure.
it's what's made us stronger, though. Like failing at our memory systems. Like we've struggled with it,
Right.
but if we didn't struggle with it, we'd just assume that they were backing up.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's no manual, right? And I think that was the hardest part for
Yeah.
me because it's just like, how do you do this? Like,
Yeah.
that's why we were. What does that sound?
Is it outside?
I don't know. But like
Hello?
going back to like the memory cards, our system was
Important item.
import night of,
Yeah.
and then you had mentioned like, well, we should buy more memory cards or something like that.
Me?
And I
I
was
had
like-
that idea.
Oh wow, that's
think-
probably smart.
Yeah. No,
probably me.
I didn't say that was somewhere. I was just like, that sounds expensive.
Oh, and it was expensive.
But it was, and it was, yeah. Even now,
Think
like,
about how much money we spent.
yeah. I mean, the
Oh my
cards that
gosh.
we use are
Everything.
$150 for cards, so it's like
This little
$1,500 for
this little
10.
thing right here.
It's insane.
And
And think about 250 weddings.
yeah, it's
You do the math.
Yeah.
Butterfly in the sky.
You don't use one card per wedding either.
right. It's
No.
like 6 cards.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. Eventually, we did that, but it was like the cost to like what is it costing us,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and eventually it's just like, yeah, we need to buy more cards.
Yeah.
And I think we're still finally kind of figuring it out, now. So.
And then like last year to this year with like the gear was just like the logistics of the gear, and now it's just like all right,
Yeah.
everyone, we're just gonna buy all this gear. Everyone's gonna have their own case.
It's so much more easy to
Yeah.
have
Yeah. Well, especially with
that
so many
peace of mind.
employees.
Right.
Like, if you don't know who's using everything, so it's like things are coming
Right.
back broken, and you're
Right.
like, who the heck just left this broken?
Yeah.
So
That's
like
the
you
other
don't even
thing.
know.
Yeah, the expense of the gear. It's just like that's another thing. We're like, even with our gear, we never
Yeah.
cheaped out on like
Little
those
things add up.
Yeah. But then someone dropping a lens, something like that.
Yeah, but she paid for it, so it was all right.
I wasn't referring to her.
Oh, right. The only person who dropped a line.
There have been a
No,
few.
there's been a few.
Yeah.
Who dropped?
Oh, there's
Who the heck else dropped a line?
The 7200.
Oh! I did. That was my fault, but
I did
that's
it.
because I trusted my second shooters.
You got it.
I had to
Sometimes
trust
they're
them.
gonna make mistakes.
And then I picked up the tripod, and then the whole
That was
wedding
so
goes.
awkward.
I was in front of everybody.
It was
Yeah,
in front of a
dude.
large group of people, and
And
it fell from a very
Think,
high.
how did I feel?
Just
Man.
swoop it up. Yeah, it's good. They're
I
built.
was like, oh God, no!
Just
Thank
like
God, man. That
fall asleep.
tripod plate saved it.
Oh, that's
I
insane.
think that might be one of those
Probably.
guys over there.
But yeah, and that's a wrap, folks.
Locked her up. I locked her up. Awesome. So, just got off the call with the client. I'm not sure if we're going to air that, but a couple of things did come up on that call, which I thought were like
we
very
just talked
noteworthy.
about.
Yeah.
Which were she said, there's not a lot of companies that do photo and video. Very true.
Well-
and then she said there's not a lot of companies that do like photo and video, and then the video is like good and like creative. And that was something that was very intentional. Like from the beginning, we modeled ourselves after Henry Weddings, and he mentored us
Shout out
in the
Henry.
early
Shout out, Henry.
mentored us and still does. I pester him with questions. I remember being in the
All the
Bahamas,
time.
like, "Oh, will these cards work? Hey, will these cards work in this new camera?"
Literally anything that goes wrong. Hey, why did this happen?
But he's super helpful.
He's great.
Yeah, and
Remember that one time when we were all piled in your apartment?
Oh yeah. Before we started,
no AC.
it all started
AC
with
didn't work.
All started with Henry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was
That
great.
That
He
was.
was super helpful.
That was-
Then
a lot of things happened that day.
There was a lot that went on
Yeah.
that day. Why was there so much?
Just some drama.
Some drama.
Do I not remember the drama?
Oh, you do.
Okay.
We'll talk about it later.
That's for the off the pod.
Last question here, and then we'll get into hopefully some of their questions on the Instagram Live.
Oh,
Favorite wedding memory or favorite wedding? Whether it be the couple, the day, experience.
It's easy. Jason and Kristen all day.
Jason and Kristen?
honestly, I would have to say, yeah, I think it was an opportunity for us to bond more. We all had fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
think
I was stressed because I wanted it to
definitely
be the best that I
stressed.
could be.
I mean, like,
but-
They're referring to the Palm Springs wedding.
oh yeah, Palm
yeah,
Springs,
Palm Springs.
2020.
Check it out on Vimeo. Great film.
Yeah. No, but I think seeing the results of our
Yeah.
time spent there and
Right.
with the couple, I wish every wedding was like a weekend away trip,
Yeah.
you know? But again, it boils down to like, if I was doing that on my own, how boring,
Right.
you know?
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
it was fun to be there.
It would almost be like, oh, I gotta go out, and like you're leaving your friends and family, where it's like it almost feels like we're going with our friends and not family, but it's like
Yeah.
a little
Basically.
vacation.
Well, I feel
Mode.
like that's even how the wedding felt. It felt
Yeah,
like
that's
we were
so
with
true.
friends and family.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's like the benefit of like knowing your photographer and videographer.
Yes.
Right.
Now, granted, we love Kristen. We've worked with Kristen for years. And so, I went to Italy with Kristen for her wedding as well. So, like, we had time to bond there, over food and drinks. So, it's like you get to know, her from that experience. And then, Jay was just such a
He's
great
great.
guy.
He's so funny.
He's awesome, super funny, super relaxed. He's a character. And so, I think, the culmination of all those two things, my wife was able to come. And, we've all worked with each other for so long. And
Yeah.
especially with Steph, too. She's an intern, but she's been an intern here for years.
It's always great bringing someone new. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
giving
And
them
they get that experience,
Yeah.
Get the full
I mean,
experience.
I never thought going into, a wedding company that I'd be traveling around the country,
That about wraps it up with the founding members of Move Mountains Co. If you have any
Founding
questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the comments if you're watching through YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.
Definitely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Peace
you.
out.